Hi everyone, today we're talking about co-creating department-wide rubrics. Now this is a big ask. If you haven't done this sort of thing before, it will take time, I will say that. And the very first thing you want to do is make sure you understand and you convey to your teachers the why behind competency-based rubrics and why would we want to have a year-long, multi-year-long, department-wide rubric that we use for all assessments. First of all, it saves teachers time, and for all the other details, feel free to go to the podcast episodes on this topic that were just released this month on the Time for Teachership podcast. Now, I will say in summary, I suppose, there are good results for student achievement. With that, let's get to the how. And now the how is going to take, again, many times together with your PLC, your department. But here's what I want us to think through. I want us to think through the steps of how we do it and what specific artifacts we can use as either models or things we can bring to those meetings so that we're not just kind of creating from scratch, which we can. But if you're feeling like, oh, scratch is not my style or my team style, no worries, I got you. So here we go. Let's look at that summarizes podcast episode 159, all about this topic. There's going to be 2 dropping this month. So again, check those out. But here is where I want to focus. After you've kind of conveyed to teachers the rationale, the research base, all this stuff, why it's good, consider categories of competency. So how many gradations of nuance do you want in terms of the rubric? So these are like the headers. One example that I name here is literally NAME as an acronym, not yet meeting the standards, approaching standards, meeting the standards, and exceeding the standards. Now you could have 3, 4, 5. Typically, I think 4 is like the middle road. So again, I think 3 would work. I think 5 would work, whatever you think. But we want several categories so that we can get really precise in terms of students aren't there yet, they are there yet. Or any sort of variant on that. Now, I also think that you want to make sure that you have team time set up. That's critical. And what you're going to ask them to do during that team time ultimately is that they're creating subject-specific rubrics, and then they're going to use those for every assignment or even pieces, right? So for formative assessments, just one row, perhaps, of the shared rubric. I think sometimes it's really hard for people to conceive of this if they don't do it already. So this is my absolute favorite resource. This is on performanceassessment.org. This is the New York State Performance Standards Consortium. That is a mouthful. They have performance-based assessment rubrics. These are high school level, and they use them for graduation portfolios. So typically 12th grade, but I've used these actually almost identical versions in my 10th and 11th grade classes as well. And I know they've been used in possibly a slightly adopted way in 9th grade classes as well throughout the consortium. And so you can check out all of these. So you have your kind of 4 subjects here: math, ELA, social studies, science. You also have an engineering or a design piece that's also been used. I know in like art, or a variant of it has been used in art classes. So you can, I think, just get a sense of like what it could look like here. Then what I think you should do is say, okay, well, what do we like about this? And let's adapt it on our own. So here we go. Maybe we say we do 3 categories of competency. This is an example that I've created for my investigating history folks, Massachusetts curriculum that's based in social studies for 7th grade. And this is my grade 7 folks. So we want kind of these visual, non-number, non-letter things. And we just want to say like, hey, we got the bike out of the garage. We need support. Now we're riding on mountains, right? So whatever you want to use for your categories. We said claim, evidence, reasoning are 3 incredibly common things we want to grade all the time. A lot of the assignments in this curriculum. Okay, so this is also a good point here. It's an existing curriculum, so we're building from that. But we're also thinking, like, what do we do in social studies? Claim, evidence, reasoning all the time. So we kind of wrote these out. And then what you'd want to think about next is like, okay, what assignments am I going to use them on? So if you're using existing curriculum, you're just identifying which of these assignments have these things. And if you're building out curriculum, you're saying, well, I'm designing with these in mind. Great, right? Now I want to show you the curriculum itself doesn't have rubrics for every assignment, this particular curriculum, and a lot of curriculums may not. But if they do, but they don't quite fit, I want to just talk through that for a second. So you might have your teachers bring an assignment and ideally a rubric to say, hey, I already made this rubric. Does it have to change? Can I adjust it? Does it fit? Does it not fit? So here's one example of what I would say. All right, so we have this petition. This is a petition to an emperor of ancient China. So in here, we have 4 categories. Okay, so we could condense those to 3 if we want them to fit our CER category, right? And so we can maybe condense 1 and 2, right? So it's either not clear or it's unimportant, or it's not connected to the main idea, whatever, right? So we do 1, 2, 3, we condense these, but then we're also looking at these categories, right? So purpose might be claim. If I'm looking here, I say identified an important issue, right? Okay, well, that's kind of like a claim. Support, right? I have arguments. Okay, well, that's reasoning, right? And it might, I don't see evidence here, but we have at least claim and reasoning. We organize my ideas. Okay, well, hey, that's one. We don't have that. We have claim, evidence, reasoning. We don't have organization. So something around, organization or being clear, that makes sense. And then audience, you know what? That also might relate to clarity. So I am clear in whoever I'm speaking to, understanding me. I'm like, my ideas are organized and they're clear, and I'm recognizing who I'm talking to. That could all be condensed into one. And actually, I think there is a rubric from the New York Performance Standards Consortium that has that example. So that's how I would just adjust, right? I would bring this as a text, talk about it as a department, and think about how do we adjust it to fit what we all decided is like a really good kind of rubric to use repeatedly. I would also say in that previous one, just making it, less general or more general, right? We're specifically talking about this assignment in a lot of the language here. Let's make it more general so we can reuse it, right? We just don't want to have to create rubrics for every new assignment. Let's just generically do it. And then it's transparent to students. They always know what to expect. Here, this is a summative assessment. Now, summative assessment itself is pretty good. And even, the rubric criteria is not bad, because I do think it's clear to the students, like the tasks, but it is very task-based to me. It's not super skill-based. So I would redo this rubric. I see here there is a why. Okay, well, to me, that's kind of like claim reasoning. We have evidence. So maybe here is our claim, evidence, reasoning. So this is a museum curation activity. So they have to curate and group them into like these different quote unquote rooms of the museum and say why they're there, right? So I think here that could be one, right? Organization. Again, that goes back to organization in the previous one. So maybe we do have an organization row of our rubric. And this, I think this is like a scaffold, right? So thinking about like key ideas and connections to themes, well, that's present here, right? So that might just be like an approaching standards, like, oh, you made notes, you annotated the sources, but you didn't actually put it together in the museum. You're approaching standards, right? We're just not there yet. Using the 8 to 12 sources, that's really specific. And so you could say that it's part of evidence. That's what I would do, right? So this evidence explainer, this actually talks about, I think, reasoning, right? It's saying why. Okay, and then your evidence, you could just say like has sufficient evidence as a linguistic like phrase that you can use repeatedly. And in this one, just be like, for this project, sufficient evidence means 8 to 12, right? So keep this as organization. This is evidence. This is reasoning. This is like claim or part of reasoning. And then this becomes organization. This one kind of goes away. Sorry, that was a little longer than usual, but I wanted to show you all the different types of examples of artifacts and existing rubrics that teachers might bring to the table and how to navigate those. For more questions, absolutely reach out. In the description below this video, I'm going to link to my rubrics template. There's 3 different kinds there. Feel free to take it, use it, adapt it. Enjoy.